So good afternoon, everyone. Today, for session number 2 on asset management, we have a keynote speaker, Mr. R.K. Tyagi. Mr. R.K. Tyagi has a work experience of over 32 years in power transmission system, out of which 26 years of experience is in the operation and maintenance of substation and transmission line at various key positions in premier CPSUs in the power sector, such as Power Grid and NTPC. He has handled multidisciplinary functions in the various business segments of Power Grid like asset management, engineering, business development, telecom, load dispatch and communication. Mr. Tyagi has been instrumental in respecting India on many international technical committees for preparing various technical standards and is an author of more than 50 technical papers which have been presented at national and international conferences. We welcome you, sir. The moderator for today's session is Mr. Ashutosh Sharma. Mr. Ashutosh Sharma is working with DNV in capacity of Senior Principal Consultant, Grid Asset Management, responsible for Southern Europe, Middle East, Latin America, and Africa, and is based in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. His specialization is asset management, asset condition, asset assessment, power failure investigation, risk management, and technical due diligence. He has led and delivered numerous projects in the area of specialization internationally. He is a certified project management professional and has presented many technical papers and case studies in international seminars. We welcome you, sir. The next participant for today is Mr. Anurag Jory. Mr. Anurag Jory is Managing Director and Lead for Accenture's utility practice in India. He comes with over 18 years of experience in strategy development, digital transformation, sales and marketing, and large-scale program management. He has worked with leading companies and public sector enterprises across multiple countries, including India, Indonesia, the United Kingdom, Bahrain, Brazil, and United Arab Emirates and Ethiopia. We welcome you, sir. The second speaker for today is Mr. Oliver Foster. Mr. Oliver Foster is the owner and Chief Executive Officer of Plenary, an infrastructure management organization. He is passionate and an expert in creating energy-efficient infrastructure for energy grids and storage, transportation system, and telecommunication networks. Since 2018, Mr. Foster has been a key member of the Institute of Asset Management and currently serving as the member of the board. We welcome you, sir. The next speaker is Mr. Simon Sutton. Mr. Simon Sutton is a Global Director of Professional Services for Altanova and has over 25 years of experience in transmission and distribution industry, predominantly in the cable sector. His interest includes condition monitoring, diagnostics, testing, forensics, and asset management. He is also the chairman of SIGRE Study Committee D1, Materials and Emerging Test Techniques. We welcome you, sir. Our last and final speaker is Mr. Jagat Reddy. Can we have Mr. Jagat Reddy? Mr. Jagat Reddy is the Director Transmission at Telangana State Transmission Company and have an experience of 30 years in APSEB, AP Transco, and AP CPDCL. In the field of procurement, projects, master plan, and operation, as a Director Transmission, the following have been engineered and commissioned in line with the objective of providing uninterrupted quality power supply to all consumers within 6 months of state formation. Instrumental in enhancement of 7,900 megavolt ampere transformation capacity with a record time of 11 months of providing 9 hours daytime power supply to agriculture and other consumers from 2016. And in extending 24 hours power supply to all consumers including agriculture with effective from 2018. I think Mr. Reddy is occupied somewhere. He'll be joining us in a moment. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. This session will be the toughest session for audience, definitely because post-lunch, and we have a very ambitious responsibility to keep you awake and keep you engaged. So I hope our panel is ready for that. And I request Mr. Tyagi to give a keynote address to this and let us get enlightened from his thoughts Please, Mr. Tyagi. And time is 15 minutes. 1-5.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank World Summit, Utility Summit organizers and IMA for inviting me for this session to speak as a keynote speaker. Respected dignitaries on the dais, participants, the asset management, especially for a utility, it is one of the important aspects when everybody is talking about $5 trillion economy by India, then net zero by 2070, developed country by 2047, 850 gigawatt or 800 gigawatt by 2030, out of which 500 gigawatt by from non-fossil fuels. Today itself, we have 450,000 circuit kilometer in India, about 1100,000 MVA transformation capacity. And when we are talking about 500 gigawatt of renewable, we need to have lot of transmission assets, generation assets, and distribution assets. So complications, we can understand that how much complex system it will be by 2030. In power grid, we have about 173,000 circuit kilometer of transmission line, about 493,000 of transformation capacity, 290,000 transmission line towers, transformers about 3,600, circuit breakers 8,500, current transformer about 20,000, 400 kV and 765 kV mainly. Then CVT and PT put together, it is about 14,000. Surge arrestor also in that range. Disconnector 16,000 numbers. So put together we have 400,000 elements or assets which need to be monitored. And each asset, like transformer, has about 50 data points. Circuit breaker has about 35 data points. CT has about 20 data points. If we, on an average, we calculate that each asset of 400,000 asset base, we have maybe about 10 to 12 million data points each year. So that means condition monitoring of each and every equipment manually is not possible. So the topic or discussion from the morning itself, everybody is talking about digitization, everybody is talking about automation. So we have already taken up this automation and digitization in power grid, and we have been able to maintain our transmission system availability more than 99.80%, and trippings or reliability of our system is about 0.3 to 0.35 trippings per line every year. So which is comparable or better than best international utilities, especially transmission utilities. The asset management practice of power grid have been benchmarked by International Utility UMS US, and our performance has been benchmarked as in quadrant 1, which is high performance and low cost. So we are in transmission line, we are in quadrant 1. For substation, we are in quadrant 1. So how it is possible? It is possible by automation. It is possible by non-invasive condition monitoring techniques. Power grid from the day one we have been adopting state-of-the-art technologies, be it frequency response analysis, be it dynamic contact resistance measurement for breakers, be it third harmonic resistive current, be it variable frequency 10 delta, be it control switching for transformers and reactors. Especially in India, where power grid assets are spread, there are challenges like natural challenges because of changing climate. Like every year, there will be 2 cyclones on eastern part of the this southeastern part coast of the country, like Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Tamil Nadu, or towards western side, which is Gujarat and Maharashtra. So every year there are damages because of cyclones. There are floods in eastern part of the country. There are floods in northeastern part of the country. And especially in northeast, landslide is also a big issue. Then in northern part of country, especially in Jammu, where temperature in winter goes as low as -20, and snow avalanche is there, which causes severe damages to transmission assets. Similarly, in area like Delhi, we have storms and high speed winds in May and June. So these are the challenges we have been meeting by automation. We have been mitigating by automation and by adoption of state-of-the-art technologies being adopted by Power Grid. But when we are talking about renewables, today 500 gigawatt, that means already the effect of renewable integration is visible in our grid. There are frequent voltage excursions. Voltage of 765 kV, it comes down as low as 690 kV. It goes whenever we switch one reactor out of service, the voltage goes as high as 820 kV. So about 100 to 120 kV variation is there in voltage. Then because there will be a low inertia, rotating mass will be less, so there will be lot of challenges because of whenever there is a fault in the system, the frequency excursion and voltage excursions are going to be huge. So in addition to the existing challenges, cyclone, flood, then landslides, snow, storms, so these are the additional challenges which are going to be encountered by transmission assets or assets like of Power Grid. So unless until we adopt automation, we adopt new technologies, the utility will not be able to manage their assets. So what we are thinking, automation in transmission line patrolling by drone. Drone may fly to the transmission line tower, it will capture the photograph, it will automatically send the pictures to the control center, where through AI/ML the defects will be identified and then defect list will be prepared, a report will be submitted to TLM in charge, and TLM in charge or TLM crew will be sent to the site to rectify the defect whenever there is in any transmission line. Similarly, in the substation, we are thinking in my earlier presentation by Mr. A.K. Mishra, were giving details of, or he was mentioning about use of robots for substation monitoring. So there also it will be, data will be captured automatically, and it will be analyzed automatically, and accordingly it will be taken care in case of any defect in the system. When we are talking set management in Power Grid, for transformer monitoring, the auto monitoring system, PALMS, Power Grid Asset Life Management System, is already in place. PG Darpan for patrolling That means when person goes to site, all the datas are entered in tablet and automatically it is sent to the server and it is being analyzed. Similarly for the asset management dashboard, where all the dashboards have been unified or they have been integrated, and the total condition of asset can be seen at one dashboard. Now, in next step, we are considering that online integration of IT and OT. That we will have sensors in transformers, we'll have sensors in breakers, we'll have sensors in various equipments, and through our optical fiber network, the data will come to NTMC, our National Control Center, and then it will be integrated with our SAP system. And automatically, our asset condition monitoring will be indicated, and any defect or any this vulnerable equipment condition can be seen on the dashboard. So these are the things in pipeline, and we will be able to manage this huge asset base by AIML, by digitization, and by automation. One more thing which I forgot to tell, that our all assets, all substations, 270 substations are connected through fiber, and they are being controlled from our National Control Center at Manesar. And we are not having any operation person at each site, and operation is unmanned practically for last 8 or 9 years. That which we have already optimized about 2,000 to 2,500 manpower, and this way we are going to continue in future also. So I once again thank you that asset management is going to be a challenge for utilities, transmission utilities or power utilities in India, and digitization or automation is the only key for success of any utility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tyagi. If you allow me, we'd like to put a few questions before we move to the speaker. So we may have 2 questions from the panel to you, and then possibly 1 question from audience. You can please park it, we'll take up at the last, if that is fine, so that to make it more lively, and we can have some more experience from Mr. Tyagi handling such a huge asset base, pan-India level. And at this moment, we are missing the DISCOMs in the panel, but anyhow, let us have the 2 questions. Who intends to put? Else, if you allow me, I can put the first question. Just to start with then a kick start. Mr. Tyagi, you mentioned that you handle a lot of assets and a database. But asset management is considered how you deal with the process, because we can understand that asset management is more on the process rather than the ITs and OT. Yeah. So can you just enlighten us how you are managing your assets? What type of processes are existing in Power Grid? Do you follow like a simple cycle of damming PDCA cycle? Do you follow that?
Very good question, sir. In Power Grid, we have digitized all our asset details, which are available in our SAP system, ERP system. For each and every equipment, we have a defined maintenance schedule or condition monitoring schedule, that what should be the periodicity of one particular maintenance. Then, depending on the condition of each equipment, we have a defined procedure how to do the maintenance, how to do the preventive maintenance. So these defined procedures and documents are available, and to handle this asset base for each and every equipment, like be it GIS, be it transformer, be it switchgear, be it protection system, be it transmission line, we have specialized maintenance groups where experts are available who takes care each asset, they go in detail of each and every asset. Whenever there is any problem, that will be taken care by these specialized groups.
Thank you. Anyone from panel? Any question for Mr. Tyagi? Yeah, please. Oliver, please.
Many thanks for your presentation, very impressive, especially I'm impressed about your analytical competencies. My question is, what was the starting point for asset management at your organization, the motivation, the impulse, and how did you manage the organizational transformation? And what was the starting point for asset management? What was your motivation to start with asset management? And how are you managing your organizational transformation?
Sir, when we started way back in 1991, from the day one, by Government of India, we were given a mission to develop a national grid. That was our first motive and mission and objective of the company. And to adopt state-of-the-art technologies available in whether in India or whether worldwide. So we started with following best practices of National Grid UK. We collaborated with them, and the best practices of whatever were available that time in the world, we adopted that. From there only, that was the motivating factor for us. And every year we are having a conference, deliberations to review our O&M practices, our asset management practices. We review what good things we are doing, what good things we can still do. So every year we are reviewing that, sir. And based on that discussions, we again see within India, outside India, what best practices we can adopt. And like that, we are continuously adopting new technologies, like I was telling about dynamic contact resistance measurement for circuit breakers, which was adopted based on one paper available in '94 by Hydro-Quebec, Canada. We have adopted that in Power Grid, and I am proud to say that that technique has been implemented not only by Power Grid, but all utilities in India. And now this DCRM technique, based on our experience, is being adopted by utilities worldwide. And this DCRM test recommendation is available in IEC 6271-100 by IC committee also. So like that, we have been adopting that. That has been our journey all last 32 years so far, and we are able to maintain, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tyagi. May I request the next speaker, Mr. Anurag?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, before I start, I would like to talk about the Indian context, and the idea was, both from Ashutosh as well as our foreign delegates, the idea was that if we talk about the Indian context, it will allow both the people here as well as the audience to really appreciate that what is the Indian context, and then maybe some of the good practices which get talked about can be contextualized for the right usage in India. Again, a disclaimer, I think Tyagi ji spoke about Power Grid. Power Grid is one of the finest organizations we have in the country, and obviously their asset management practices are the best in class. So when I talk about the Indian context, it might not be exactly what Power Grid is about, right? It is about where you'll find most of the utilities in the country. So I'm not talking about Power Grid, I'm not talking about some of the private utilities, but I'm talking about, in general, right? How does India do asset management in utilities, right? So with that disclaimer, I'll start. Essentially, there are two lenses when you look at the Indian context. One is the lens around the key challenges which we have today, which is what I'll talk about on this slide. And then the second slide, I'll talk about what are the imperatives right? What is coming up next, which also needs to be thought about when we talk about asset management. So firstly, the challenges today, right? When we look at it, and if I were to, kind of break these challenges down into various aspects, such as operations, maintenance, inventory management, and data management, I think one aspect which really comes out is that the availability of data and information in a timely manner, in a manner which is insightful, is lagging. The second thing is that because of that, when we talk about operations, we find that, if I really compare it, if I compare the expenditures amongst the best performing discoms or transmission companies versus the laggards, the cost of operation is quite high here, right? And a lot of work which happens is manual and is dependent upon the people in charge. So it is not a homogeneous kind of processes which are followed across the organization, right? So I think those challenges lead to a lot of problems in terms of the maintenance, how it happens, a lot more breakdowns happen. So for example, what you will find is in India, within India I'm talking about, not against the world, but just like Mr. Tyagi spoke about 99.8% reliability, right? You will find there could be public sector utilities which might be actually operating at 90%, right? And for our asset heavy industry, that difference could be the difference between life and death, right? So there is huge disparity between the laggards and the best folks in the country, right? So those are the challenges, and what they essentially do is they actually impact the very nature of the business. So therefore you see the matrix, right? In terms of the operational risks, it kind of sends it high. In terms of the operational performances, all the metrics go down because of some of those challenges, right? So these are the current challenges. What is also interesting is that there are, I would say multiple factors which are coming up, which are going to make the entire task of asset management even more difficult, right? The first is aging assets. I think maybe in the West, this is a larger piece because, most of the assets have already been built. In India, we are likely to build in the next 25 years, we might build, 2/3 of the assets we'll be using in 2050, right? In that case, but however, still we have a sizable chunk of assets which are already getting old as we speak. And therefore, our ability to take care of those assets will be very important, right? The second is around the increasing demand in variable generations. So everyone here is aware about the advent of renewables, right? And that is bringing in a lot of variability in the grid. And what we are seeing is, even for a transmission company, as on today, the SLAs talk about availability. I am sure in the next 3 to 5 years, it will also be about the quality of power, right? It cannot be only availability. That will become hygiene, right? So how do we change in that changing context? The third is, as we try and pursue digital, are we looking at cybersecurity in the right manner? My sense is that, a lot of attacks worldwide have happened, which are quite high profile. India has been lucky not to have that high profile in attacks so far, but, you can only stretch your luck so far. So it's extremely important that while I see a lot of people talking about cybersecurity today, but I don't see real action on the ground commensurate with how important it has become, right? So I think cybersecurity is going to be very important. And actually at times, a lot of times when you talk to a guy in utilities who looks at assets, they may say that cybersecurity is IT. They may not even consider it as an asset management kind of a risk. And finally, the regulations are changing, the regulatory bodies are changing, and what they expect is changing. And again, there are two prongs to it. The first prong is around the quality of service. Maybe till 5 years ago, especially in the power sector, people were seen as beneficiaries. So a citizen was a beneficiary of getting power. Today, he is being seen as a customer. Essentially, what that means is that today quality of service is becoming important, and that is being built into regulation, right? So this is one aspect where utilities are being told, improve the quality of service. At the same time, the regulators are saying do it in economical cost. You are unable to put down everything you spend. You are unable to pass it on to the customer, all of it. So essentially, if I were to just say one line on this slide or one sentence on this slide, it is the challenge is to do more with less. That is what is required in asset management today, right? So those were the challenges, and that's the imperative going forward, right? And just to keep it simple, this is my last slide. Essentially, in my view, what the utilities need to do today is A, don't take small pilots or POCs and then forget them, because you don't get the true value out of it. So the need of the hour is you need to have a proper asset management strategy, so that we are able to look in a holistic manner that what are my assets, why are they important, what is the value they are bringing to the table. And again, like I spoke about value, I think value is again very contextual when you look at a utility, right? If I'm a pharma company or a FMCG company, I can talk about value in only money terms. But when you talk about a utility, the value is not only in terms of money, it is also in terms of, availability of power to everyone. So there could be people who might be paying you less, but are you then not going to provide them with the service, right? The government is not going to do that. So therefore the value and the different ways in which the value will be perceived, those are themselves changing, and therefore it's important that we have a comprehensive asset management strategy in place which allows us to put down each of the initiatives in the right perspective and helps the jigsaw puzzle get together. The second is again very important. Again, a lot of people may think this is not core asset management, but data quality. Because if we don't have the right data, there is no way on earth that we will be able to manage the assets in the right manner. What does that mean? It means some very basic things. The right kind of master data management. Actually, if I can put my shirt on the table, there will be utilities in the country where even the asset registry is not in a proper form, right? It essentially means getting your asset registry in place in the right manner. So that's the data I'm talking about. The third is, Government of India and, with the advent of IT, OT, a lot of investment has gone in. But when those investments have happened, SCADA has come from one provider in another project. And a ERP solution has been put in place as a part of another program through another vendor. They don't talk, right? How do you integrate IT and OT so that your data silos don't happen and you are able to take the right kind of informed decisions which can be done given the investments which have been put in place, both on IT and the OT systems, right? Fourth, I think leveraging digital is extremely important in every which way, right from what kind of capex I want to do, right, to what kind of predictive capabilities I want to build, say using a digital twin, or how do I train my maintenance guys using something like AR, VR, right? All of those things are digital, and as we need to do more with less, I think digital is going to play a very, very pertinent role in that area. And finally, I think enough said about cyber security, but as we go more digital, as we become more data savvy, I think the ability of cyber attacks to impact us is only going to increase. So therefore, having the right kind of cyber security policies in place, the right kind of capabilities in place is going to be very important. Otherwise, one big attack, and it can actually lead us to believe that we don't need to do so much of digital, we don't need to do so much of data, because this can be detrimental. So on that note, I'll stop. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I look forward to more interactions as we go along in the conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anurag. Is there any question from panel? Okay, is there any question? Sorry. Yeah.
I'll take one. Following on from the cybersecurity comment, and also from the keynote address as well, about more and more monitoring. The more monitoring we put on the grid, the more digital devices that are out there. How do we keep all those individual devices cyber safe? It's one thing to protect your corporate network, but how, we're going to have thousands, hundreds of thousands potentially in a country the size of India.
Sure, I think excellent question, and I think that's a question, actually it's a dilemma which every organization in the world is facing, not only utilities or just the asset management, right? And to me, the answer is in terms of 2 or 3 things. Very basic, again, there is no rocket science here. One is having the right policies in place, but more importantly, sensitizing the people, right? How important data security is. And you know, it starts with some basic things. You don't share your passwords, right? That's a basic thing, right? So essentially, I think if I were to only point out 2 things which we need to do, because see, you can't have a security system on every device. Because as we become more and more digital, it will be bring your own device, it will be a lot of other things. So essentially, to my mind, A, having the right policies and the compliance mechanisms in place, and B, which is even more important, ensuring that the people in the business understand the importance of cybersecurity, the importance of not compromising some of the basic aspects such as their passwords, etc. And then, you know, kind of having a program which kind of ingrains this into them. You know, I think, and as the people who are coming up, right, the young generation which is coming up, I find those are the things which are being actually inculcated right from the school. So I think maybe 20 years hence this may not be required, but as on today, and you know, given how most of the people have grown up, it will be very important to really ingrain some of these things and put in the right checks and balances through policies so that this can be taken care of. I hope that answered your question in some way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any question from audience? One question. Yeah. Please introduce yourself also when you are putting the question.
Hi, nice to be here. My name is Prashant. I'm Global Head of Marketing and Sales for Hitachi Energy. I wanted to ask you a very specific question. We talked about the asset management, but what I believe is in India, the rate of increase in number of assets in next decade would be exponential. If we talk about the integration of renewable energy, and digitalization is really critical because of that. Are we thinking about any policies which will ensure that there is a digital passport associated with any assets which is purchased by power grids and other utilities?
Your question to Power Grid, I think, yeah?
Yeah, probably Mr. Tyagi.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a challenge for any utility handling so much of assets. For cybersecurity especially, there are policies, regulations by Government of India. We are talking about trusted vendors, that whatever assets we are going to add, it is to be from the trusted vendors. Then cybersecurity policies need to be in place. All equipment needs to be tested as per IC 62443. So for that we have to set up a laboratory by CPRI or ELDA. So all equipments which are going to be installed or to be connected to the grid, they need to be tested for these requirements. Then each utility, whether it is a transmission utility, generation or distribution, we need to have our SOC so that we can monitor any incident in the system and any challenge because of that. Secondly, there is the CERT power at CA who are monitoring each and every critical activity. And CERT transmission, CERT distribution, CERT generation have been assigned the responsibilities, especially to power grid for transmission sector. NTPC in generation, hydro by NHPC, like that. So each and every utility is being sensitized for cyber security risks. And from time to time, we have to go for audits by NCIPC, by CERTIN, by various agencies, so that any vulnerability, if they're in our system, that need to be identified and plugged. So such things in place, I think we can manage the risk or threat because of cyber security. Thank you.
Just a follow-up to Anurag. We talked about digitalization, but in Middle East now and then before in my career in China, we always link digitalization with carbon footprint reduction, which is again a big challenge. But in your presentation, how the digitalization and what level of digitalization can enable the carbon footprint reduction targets?
I think this is more on the digitalization rather than asset management actually. So I think this question goes to a different session. If you allow me to, you can possibly park this question for that session. Because there is a very thin line between digitalization and asset management. This is one of the elements out of the asset management. So because of the rest of the speakers and we have to cover up more on the asset management, so please excuse me on that part. Yeah. So I really appreciate your question. Thanks for it. So may I request Mr. Oliver now as his next speaker, please.
5 minutes. Well, I was calculating with 7 minutes. It's a great pleasure to be here this afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody of you. Imagine I would ask you to teach me everything about cricket you know, and you have 5 minutes. So that's the situation I am in currently. I dedicated my life to asset management because I think that asset management is one of the key competencies that we need in our future world. If we think about how to fight climate change, how to fight wars, how to fight pandemics, it will never work out without modern technology and without assets. However, currently, we do not use at least a half of the potential value the existing assets could bring us. And this is why we need to talk much more about asset management. I myself am active in 2 organizations. Beside my own consulting business, I'm member of the board of the Institute of Asset Management, which is a global organization covering a network of 30,000 asset managers in 86 countries. Many Indian colleagues are with us, and we are just about opening a chapter in India to have even a more stronger footprint of our Indian colleagues in the global community. So please be invited to talk with me about how we can collaborate in future in asset management. I'm also consulting a couple of assets managing companies regarding asset management. And the core of this is to see what asset management is and how we can take value out of assets. Usually we work with the ISO 55000 norm. Many of you colleagues will know this norm, and I like the definition of asset management in this norm a lot. It says asset management are all coordinated activities to gain value from assets. And I like the terminus coordinated activities because it's much about how we work together, how we design modern organizations. And also the question is about how we take value out of assets, which is much more than technical quality, it's much more than costs, it's much more than profit, it's much more than decarbonization, it's all of it. And we have to manage a portfolio of values that need to be taken out of assets. So if we talk about coordination of these activities, we are talking about breaking up silos in organizations, because silos are the main obstacle in achieving values from assets.
We need to talk to each other. We need to talk to each other. We need to create organizations being able to learn, to collaborate, to take the right decisions on assets. And that's much more than handling intelligence data. It's much more than buying the right technology. It's about learning together, creating organizations, learning together how to deal with these assets. And yeah, just as I'm having just 5 minutes and 2 minutes, 15 seconds left, I would like to come to the main hypothesis. And I've been working in several transition countries like former communist countries in Eastern Europe and also the Gulf region. And I must say I have 7 key hypotheses that we might discuss now and also later during the coffee break. The first one is all utilities will have much more to do in future than we're having now. The necessary task will increase significantly. In the same situations, we are not having enough resources and we are having less and less available resources. We're lacking of finance, data, material, hands, knowledge, brains. So we are having much more to do, but we're having much less resources to achieve our targets. And especially in transition countries, and especially in countries with a very fast transition. We are also in Germany, we're having a transition, but we're having a very slow transition. But especially in communities with a very fast transition, resources are very, very scarce. The next point is digitization and automation will help us significantly, but not overnight. So it will take time to design IT systems, it will time to take the right data, and more important, automation will not substitute people immediately. We might have the right decisions which substation to replace, but still for the next decades, somebody needs to do it. And still we will need this, and this is the human hand, and without the human hand, things will not work. We will have, in 2070, when India's energy is green, we will have automized roboters exchanging substations. I'm very sure we will have automized excavators digging trenches, but we won't have it on the short term. So we need to think about workarounds for the next years, as well for the software as also for hardware. And we will only be able to face these challenges when we work in organizations, sharing knowledge, experience, creativity. We need every of your employees. We need every of your employees to design the future, to give his experience, and to give his ideas to the entire system. So therefore, asset management is much more a management philosophy. It's less a methodology. It's much more a management philosophy. We need smart grids and smart assets, but much more we need smart people and smart organizations. And to take the entire value out of our people, we need to have a good asset management. So asset management is a mindset. Asset management is about coordination, about working together, about taking the full creative potential out of your organizations. And I would love to link with you via social platforms and to keep the discussion running on how we as the global society in asset management will deal with the challenges of the future. So, many thanks.
However, I have a request. Can you just keep your last slide of the presentation and let us invite the questions? Can you just keep the last slide of your presentation?
Yeah, it's already gone.
It has gone.
Yes.
Can you just replay, please?
Whoops.
Otherwise, you can see.
Give me a second.
No problem.
I'm not an engineer, but I'm still dealing with, so, okay, thank you.
Okay, so why I requested him to keep the last slide, that is the most important slide related to asset management. And I will really motivate our audience to put questions, if you can put from that slide, because I had so many questions out of that slide, but I will also limit to myself to one question to Oliver. And knowing that Institution of Asset Management was the pioneer to set up the standard globally past 55. So we should really, it is our privilege to have him here, and let us explore maximum out of his knowledge. I was not willing that he should keep on presenting. Let us be more interactive. So please put up questions if you have any. Thank you.
Hi. This question is for Oliver. So Oliver, we've spoken a lot about asset management, and and thanks for your hypothesis. How important do you think asset investment planning is in all of this?
Asset investment planning is mainly in transition countries about enlarging the network. What comes on top will be, in a few years, will be replacement of assets. And we will have a huge amount of necessary replacements in the next decades, and also enlargement of your network. I learned that you are doubling the energy amount for 6 times until 2050, right? Which is a huge amount. You won't have enough capital to do so. You won't have enough material. You won't have enough people to construct. So you need to have a smart investment planning on decide what not to do. Asset management is much more about what not to do than about what to do, because we can't achieve all of our targets. We made a study, well, on the German market, which is just partly comparable, but it turned out that we won't be able to do even half of the necessary investments. So we need to be very, very smart on what to do. Less on how to do it, but we need to be very smart on what to do. Is that answering your question?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yeah, please. Please introduce yourself also before putting the question.
Hi, my name is Ketan. I'm from Accenture as well. So I would want to bring across to life one of the customers who I just met. And our story is not in terms of perfection. In the sense, the problem statement presented was the asset hierarchy management, we have an overrun there and we're spending 3 times more effort than that was required. Our as is versus as built and as designed, okay, is requiring more efforts to a tune of 9%. Then we have issues vis-a-vis where we're releasing our work orders, which are in draft status, to the field, just primarily being in draft, and that's causing more truck rolls, etc. And this is a 50 to 70-year-old utility organization, fairly advanced. Okay, I am more motivated by the question that you asked before. It was essentially saying, where do you start? In such a situation, do you go one by one, or what does the path to getting it right looks like?
Yes, thank you for this question. It's, from my point of view, maybe the most important point to have a nucleus in your organization to start, and to have a smart team, smart small team that brings the asset management idea of coordination into the enterprise. And this is, for a lot of reasons, a very difficult task, because the benefit of asset management is not obvious from the first second. So you really need to make internal marketing and convince people to believe in the asset management idea. And that's one of the most important things, especially when working with a big organization, a big decentered organization of blue-collar workers. It is essential to integrate these people who are in general motivated and intelligent and creative and experienced, to integrate this into the idea of asset management. This is a big challenge for organization development.
Thank you. Can we have one more question?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So I wanted to, my name is Abhishek Anand, and I work with a remote sensing and machine learning based decision science company, which is into asset management and asset monitoring. So wanted to understand what are the different, how well are we adapting different digital technologies to monitor assets? That's the first part. And the second part is, are we using satellite data and machine learning to do that? If yes, then how? And how can companies with our profile help? Thank you.
Talking about innovation, which is the main point as far as I understand. Talking about innovation is one of the key things in asset management, especially where we can substitute handiwork by intelligence, by smart technologies, like using, you mentioned it, using drones for inspections, for example, or using intelligent technologies monitoring assets. This is key to release people to do other blue-collar work from my point of view. So it's absolutely essential to invest in these technologies, but still we will have a transformation period. And my feeling says that transformation in India will work very fast, faster than in many other countries. But still we need to face many manual procedures and many devices not being intelligent and many devices that need to be handled manually. That's one of the key points. It doesn't say it's unnecessary to install modern technology, but most of the technology will be old. You know, in existing energy systems where devices will be able to work for 60 to 80 years, you will always have significantly old devices. And to deal with these devices, as usually these devices are on the core of the networks. So in the core of the function of the entire system, we need to be able to deal with these devices. And from my point of view, this is the key challenge, to know how to deal with these aging devices. Hopefully this answers your question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We can take one more question, but not from left brain, now only from the right brain of the audience. Yeah.
Can I just make a quick comment on that last question about machine learning and so on? Obviously, there's a huge amount of research going on for machine learning. You know, every conference I go to, every academic conference I attend, you know, within CGRE, within the study committee, there's a huge amount. The issue is often either the training data sets, because they're false, they're fake, they're simulated, and usually what they always lack. And you know, we can put monitoring devices on all sorts of assets these days and collect huge amounts of data. The problem is what we normally lack with the machine learning methods is the contextual data. What was the weather doing that day? You know, what day of the week was it? You know, was the load going up or down? Because so many of the things that the monitoring systems and the machine learning will either misclassify, don't classify, or get wrong is because it doesn't have the whole picture. You know, an engineer sitting in his office will know that it was a damp morning, so there was a condensation on the outside of the insulator, so there was a leakage current, or there was surface tracking. The monitoring device just sees a rising current. So, and it will probably say that's a problem. The reality is when the condensation disappears, the current goes away, and everything's okay. So the challenge, I think, for the machine learning methodologies is to actually not just focus on one data stream. It's got to bring in all the other things that the engineer would normally know about and have at his fingertips. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Amit Tripathi, and I work with CDRI, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. So thank you for this slide. And so my question is primarily, I think power sector is going to see two type of risk in another 30 to 40 years. One would be a transition risk, another one would be a physical risk. So my question is, in terms of the asset management philosophy, how you'd like to integrate into your approach where it will look specifically at these two risks, especially the physical risk of cyclone, extreme weather events, in your asset management.
Could you repeat the second part of the question, please? That was
So what I said that the power sector specifically will have two risks going forward in another decade, few decades. One would be at physical risk due to the extreme weather events, cyclone and others. We have seen that multiple times that it has a massive impact on across the geographies, not just in developing countries, even in developed countries. We see what has happened in America, what has happened in Europe. So it has a massive impact on that, as well as the transition risk to the renewable energy. So my question is how your asset management philosophy to manage the asset for next 40 years will include the principles of physical risk and transition risk into your work plan.
So I hope you got it. He is asking, there is a physical risk and there is a energy transition risk. So how asset management can help in out?
well, risk management as a whole is one of the key functions in asset management. Just for some seconds, I showed the entire picture of asset management, and there's a big point regarding the risk management. Risk management in the sense of asset management means that you try to understand what values cannot be achieved by asset management. And this includes all risks, transitional risks as well as technical risks, as well as aging devices, for example. So one of the key functions need to be implemented is an anti-risk management, including, well, risk identification through the entire organization, risk evaluation, not from the ivory tower, but from the entire organization, and also risk mitigation. That includes all risk. There's no, coming from the asset management philosophy, there is no distinction between the different types of risk. And risk is much more than just a breakdown. Risk is regarding non-fulfillment of future needs, for example, or environmental risks like losing transformers oil, things like that. So all risks need to be included and evaluated.
Yeah, so how you like to include these risks with a lot of unknowns in the future with regard to the climate risk? Yeah. So how are you going to do that? Because once the infrastructure asset is built, it's you people who come into picture for next 30, 40 years.
Can
so
I
how you
suggest
going
here, Oliver, post session, possibly you can have a one-on-one with him on the risk management if it is fine, because we are losing the time now.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, you can connect with him.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Huh? Next speaker is Mr. Simon. So please. So we are coming under time challenge. So 5 minutes.
That was 7 minutes, you said, wasn't it? Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. The previous presentations have actually been very good as an introduction, and I kind of wanted to take a step back, and Oliver very kindly put up the whole asset management framework from ISO 55000, and embedded in the middle of that diagram of his was what we would call the asset life cycle. So there's acquire, operate, maintain. And when I was planning this presentation, I was thinking, well, okay, where do we spend our time? And and this was me just picking a number out the air, and I thought, well, we probably spend 95% of our time focused on the operate and maintain. And that's where most of the discussion has been this afternoon. We've been talking about monitoring, testing, data, storing the data, making decisions on the data. And then when I was flying out here on Friday, I was thinking about this a little more, and I probably decided that actually this was probably much more like 99%, not 95%, if we really are honest with ourselves. But what I also thought, which is important, is traditionally, if we're a grid operator, for the last 40 years, we've been very much buying the same thing. We have a specification, a few things change over time, oils and transformer changes, cable technology changes, protection relays are now digital rather than mechanical, etc. But pretty much nothing has changed. But in the last 10 years, things are changing a lot. We've talked about renewable energy sources. We've talked about embedded generation. We now have battery storage coming on. In parts of Europe, I see this in the UK, we have reverse power flow on transformers. So the assets we used to buy aren't necessarily fit for purpose. They're seeing different power flows, they're being subjected to harmonics. And within the business I work for, I'm very happy to sell you lots of test equipment and lots of monitoring solutions to look after the 95%. But a lot of the problems we're seeing today are being caused by poor specifications, poor testing, and not truly understanding the conditions that the assets are going to go into. So hence the title of the presentation about getting it right from the start. Because to the point made just now, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough resources to deal with the impending replacement and building of the grid. So why actually create problems for ourselves by buying the wrong assets at the start? So I'm just going to focus on the acquire part of that whole asset life cycle. And if we unbundle the acquire part, there's lots of steps in this. Lots and lots of stages. So from the specifications you have as asset owners, I'm quite happy to go in and do factory audits. For me, it's cables. But I'll go in even before you place your order and let you know whether it's a good provider. We go through tender, we look at the prices, does it meet our specification? We might send people into the factory during production to make sure things are being built correctly. We send witnesses in to look at the FAT. This is some of the most crucial parts. We're increasingly as a business seeing challenges, particularly with things like factory inspections or FAT, where we lose work, they go to a different company. 3-4 years later, we're called in when the transformer or the cable fails. We look at the FAT reports that have been witnessed by another company, but what we would say is it was a tick-in-the-box witness. He turns up at the factory, did they do the test? Tick, signed a piece of paper. We look at the FAT reports, and you can see there's mistakes. The things have failed the test. It's failed the heat run test, it's failed the PD test. All he knows is he's seen the test. We also see this in some of the solar farms and wind farms, where transformers or cables are ending up in the wrong environments. They take an outdoor transformer, they put it indoors. They forget to allow for the fact it's going to get a lot hotter indoors, so the cooling is inefficient. We have harmonics from inverters because it's renewable energy. That puts harmonics, that increases the thermal load on the transformer. Things are failing, and they're failing in 3, 4, 5 years. And then, of course, companies are running around, panicking, you've got to get it back in service. So they're distracted. They're distracted from doing the proper asset management and the planning for the future and not creating work for themselves. So hence, it's a very simple story, and it's kind of a plea to think about what you're buying and the fact that the environment it's going into is different. It's in a different situation. It could see, as I say, reverse power flow or harmonics. So get it right from the beginning. Very simple story, very simple message, but people are failing to get this. And no amount of maintenance, no amount of monitoring, no amount of machine learning will fix the problems. If you have a bad asset in the wrong conditions, you're going to have problems. Your resources will be drained, your resources will be diverted. And as I say, I'm happy to sell you test equipment, I'm happy to sell you monitoring equipment, but I also want you to have an easy life. So get it right from the beginning. Don't try and stick band-aids over the problem. So I'm a physicist by background. I'm not an engineer, and so I have to have an equation. But don't panic, it's not going to be very complicated. So your operational reliability is based on your specifications, the quality of the manufacturing and the testing at the factory, the installation and the commissioning, and your operation and maintenance. Get a 0 in any one of those, and what do you get overall? Every child knows anything multiplied by 0 is 0. Fail at any one of these stages, and you're just building up problems. I'm a very simple physicist. This is about as complicated as my maths gets. Front end is your specifications, it's international standards, it's witnessing. Again, your tender documents will control what commissioning, how much scrutiny those assets get when they're put in the ground or put in the substation. And obviously, very much in the asset management theme, the strategy, your asset management strategy, your maintenance policy, etc., will control what operation and maintenance you do and where you focus it. So, simple story. Thank you very much.
So let's have a question from audience. Yeah, from this side, please. Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Brijen Singh from Pargate, Chief Manager Asset Management, and I look after asset management practices in Pargate. So, yeah, audible? Better now? Yeah. So, first of all, thanks a lot to Oliver and you. You have touched the base, our most pain point. We have been going forward towards asset management as ISO 55000 and all. And one question that I have right now, you have very badly, the concern that you raised is very valid, that we have to plug the holes at the earliest, right? So how do we integrate project management and asset management? At what level do they get integrated? Because in most of the companies, there are two different verticals. So how do we integrate them? What is your international experience? How do various utilities integrate these two processes? The project management and asset management.
I suppose the simple answer is they're technically two different disciplines. You know, you can go into a degree in project management. But in terms of projects, I think it's really important. Again, in that asset life cycle, at the very end, you have that replace phase. When things go wrong, when you get bad performance, when you have assets that underperform, you need to feed that back into the projects. Now, that can be through your specifications, so you start buying different things. It can be that you stop using underperforming suppliers, whether that's the installers who are making mistakes, or whether that's the asset companies, the OEMs who are supplying you poor assets. Similarly, you want to reward good suppliers. So you need something within your project management system, your tender process. It could also be environmental performance. Oliver mentioned environment earlier. So that performance, but actually the project management component of it, I would say, I don't know whether you want to make a comment on this. No?
Well, it's an integrated part of asset management again, and it follows the same ideas because you need to fulfill your stakeholder requirements, and this is what actually asset management is about, as well as project management. Okay. Do what you need to do. That's what both functionalities are.
So,
and do it well, if possible, do it well, yes.
So when I'm framing my asset management strategy, I need to start from the quality. I need to include my quality, my engineering part of it, my specification part of it, and I start from there and include it within my asset management strategy, right? That's what.
I think this is maybe one. It's a very broad answer. So I think maybe let's talk in the coffee break in a little while because it's.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I think let us park questions for the last, if any. Let's move to Mr. Jagat Reddy. Let's hear from his experience. 7 minutes, sir, please.
Good afternoon. I am Jagat Reddy, Director Transmission, Telangana Transco. Yeah, Telangana is a very young state in the country. It was formed out of Andhra Pradesh in 2014. We had a very huge power trouble on the date of state formation, 2,000-3,000 megawatt shortage. We have built up the generation capacity and as well as transmission capacity. Transmission capacity, 24,000 MVA capacity has been added in a span of 8 years from now at all levels. Lines also, transmission lines, 11,000, 12,000 circuit kilometers of transmission lines has been built, and the consumption of the state also increased from 128 million units per day to 283 million units, and as well as the per capita consumption of the state is increased from 1200 units per person to 2071 units. It is much more than national average. We have a 400 kV ring around Hyderabad. Around Hyderabad we have a 400 kV ring, and around 100 kilometers away from Hyderabad another 400 kV ring, and about 200 kilometers away from Hyderabad we have a 400 kV ring. And we have added about 150 substations within a span of 8 years. The 400 kV substations were 6 numbers at that point of time, state formation. Now it is 23 numbers. And of course 50 numbers of 220 kV substations have been added, and about more than 100 substations has been added. Our system losses has been reduced from 4.3 to 2.5% during last 8 years because of the different methods of asset management we have done it. Transmission availability is 99.98% for all these years, and asset management system. We are testing, we have a ERP schedules for transformers, breakers, everything. Every equipment has to be tested frequently as per the schedule program. We are monitoring it from headquarters. I can monitor from my desk what is the percentage of transformer testing has to be completed by this date, and what is that is being done in the field, and it is being pursued at the field level to improve the testing facility and improve the asset management. This is an asset management. Basic things, I am talking about basic things. Utility, of course not the power grid and the transmission companies has to be followed. This has led us to improve our capacity, and of course this transformer healthiness, breaker healthiness, how many of them are healthy, how many of them have to be replaced, how many of them to be attended for rectification. Everything is being monitored from circle level, district level, zonal level, and at headquarters level. This is the asset management, we are doing it. Healthiness of the PTRs, it can be shown on my dashboard, and see wherever the things are not happening, this can be controlled, spoken, and done. Management can be done this year. And management information system reports means batteries management, EHC interruptions, maximum minimum demands, and equipment failure reports. Everything is being monitored. Everything is being monitored centrally, district level, as well as zonal level, and as well as headquarters level. This is the management. We have our total network, 55,000 towers, has GPS mapped. Every line is totally mapped. See, because of this mapping, we are able to build up a best network, future network, whatever network, which we are going to, based on the GPS mapping, existing lines we are taking into consideration. And whenever we go for building up a new transmission line, new substation, when the proposals are received from the field, the proposals are verified with the existing substation system, and even after getting the sanction from CEA, when we are going for tendering system, we are again checking whether are we building a better network or not. Checking, and if there is any change, requirement of change, any better option, we are going for the better options and constructing our network system. These are some modifications even after getting the approvals from CEA for 400 kV network. Just before going for the tendering system, we have verified again with the existing system, and wherever changes or betterment of the network system has been required, it has been done instantly, immediately, and the network has been built like that. Yeah, see, during COVID period, for better asset management system, it was an opportunity during the COVID period. See, there was a lot of shortage of people. Some few people generating stations have been closed. We have to deploy them. So we have shifted them to from Genco to Transco by giving online training program for 14 days. So after giving the 14 days training, we have shifted the thermal power stations to substations maintenance. The feedback was excellent from the people. Those where we have given the training to linemen and other people, O&M people, where we have given. And that has been because of the excellent feedback that has been received by us for better management of the system, better management of our equipment, asset management, everything. Excellent feedback has been received from the field people because we talk all about the at highest level, asset management, those things, all those things. But basically we have to increase the intelligence of our manpower who are operating our system. We have touched there. Though people, because of them, things are happening, failures are happening, transmission lines failures happening, equipment failures happening, accidents are happening. We wanted to avoid that. See, because of the better results that we have received from the field, when we have trained about 200 people, those who are from Genco to Transco, we thought that we can give training to all our workmen, all our supervisory staff, all over the state. So we made, there are about 3,000 people working in the field level, supervisory level, field level, those who are working in our substations, lines and everywhere. We have given training to all the people, those who are working at Telangana transmission system, making 500 members each batch, 99% with 99% attendance to all the people. See, these are some slides about this training. Number of batches has been made, mentors, coordinators, everything we have done it, and the training program was inaugurated by our honorable chairman, Mr. Prabhakar Rao. He is the mentor of this. And about our training, this has been published in the information, this Water and Energy International magazine as well as Powerline magazine. About everywhere this has been published. As a result of this, during the training, we have received lot of questions from the field, lot of questions from the people who are taking the training from the headquarters. So we have given our resource persons, those who are taking the lectures have given the answers then and there itself, but people doesn't remind it properly. See, we thought that we have to take all these questions. We have rerun the total entire programs that has been training given to all the 2,800 people and taken the questions from that. We have given to the resource persons for answering, giving the answer for those questions. We have filtered the questions. There were about 1,400 questions on all our transmission systems, substations, lines, everywhere in the transmission system. So those questions have been answered by about 70 to 80 resource persons within the department, and of course from outside also we have brought the people from fire safety department, and hospitals, doctors and whatnot, yoga, everything, first aid, all these trainings has been given to our people. And the questions that has come in the training program and were answered by about 70-80 resource persons, those who are taking the classes to the online classes. And the committee has, because we should not give the answers, answer must be a perfect answer. We have appointed a 18-member committee, technical experts from our transmission company itself, all MRT engineers and other engineers. They sat together for about 25 days, 12 hours a day. So all the 1,400 questions and answers are vetted by the 18 experts, given answers by about 70-80 people and vetted by. So I conclude here, and I give that book as a presentation to Mr. Tyagi I have seen his 75th lecture. 75th lecture. It was an excellent lecture. I was hearing to him. Just now he told me that he is going to give a 100th lecture. So I am inspired by him. To some extent, I am also doing his job. To the extent of our state, I take this opportunity to present the handbook which has been written by our TS Transco engineers, and that has been translated into our local Telugu language also. He is the gentleman here who has translated that entire book into Telugu language, and we are going to place this book, we are printing it, and we are going to place this book in all our substations so that it is accessible for everybody. See, people we are training, we are talking about all this asset management at the corporate levels and other levels. But asset management has to come from the field. Those are the people who are handling our system. Those are the people who are equipment. See, it has reduced the failure of substation equipment. It has reduced the breakdowns. So that will give, these three things will give all results to any power sector, all results required by any power sector. So I take this opportunity to present my handbook to Mr. Tyagi. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for appreciating and this for the book.
Yeah. Thank you. So this was a gesture of goodwill. So before I was thinking to put one question, but this ceremony has excluded that because I am getting the alarms from organizers that time is over. So before I present a takeaway, I will like to just give a very short takeaway from this session. I take a liberty to stand. I love to speak, but I have been put as a moderator, so I take this opportunity. So basically, asset management, what we have gathered is all across value. It deals with the complete asset life cycle. And in my terms, I call asset management as a god for utility. Generate, operate, and dispose. So it covers the complete life cycle of the asset, starting from the initiation till the disposal. So there was a question from project management, whether it comes, so it is a part of asset management indeed. It's a very tiny part out of asset management if you look to the asset life cycle. And asset management is purely value. How you calculate value is the challenge. There might be number of elements of the value. So we have published a knowledge paper on, as you have seen in the morning, on the asset management in collaboration with GIZ. So that answers many of your questions. Please feel free to read it. And it has been a collaboration with between DNV and GIZ. Thank you all for this very interactive session. I really appreciate panel and the knowledge which he had here. Thank you, Mr. Tyagi as well, Mr. Reddy, Mr. Simon, Mr. Oliver, and Anurag. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was indeed a great session, and we had to learn more about asset management, how important it is for the utility. So I now call upon Mr. Vikas Diwan, the MD of Dhaka Power Distribution Company Limited, to come on the stage and hand over a memento to our moderator. To our keynote address, Mr. R.K. Tyagi. and to Mr. Anurag Jari. Now I would request Mr. Yasin Chaudhary, IAS MD, Kashmir Power Distribution Limited, to hand over memento to other speakers. So we stay for a photo. To Mr. Oliver Foster. To Mr. Simon Sutton. And to Mr. Jagat Reddy, sir. Sir, we request for a group photo also, please. Thank you.